is going on, everybody? Welcome to another day of NBA playoff basketball. Both basketball and baseball sucked for me yesterday. I did really enjoy watching both basketball games, and who I thought would win both kind of did. But it was I have to say, like that Clippers Utah game. That was it's a weird with basketball because there's so much we talk and there's so much analysis that goes into all this stuff, and some of it is the quality of shots. But if you watched every possession, it was incredible ball movement and it was everything down the stretch was perfect. It's just one team made the threes and the other team didn't. They made their open looks. Sometimes it's as simple as that, and that ends up happening. Anyway, just wanted to touch on that from last night because I did think they were pretty entertaining games, even though the ugliness of the Milwaukee-Brooklyn game was kind of fun to watch. Brooklyn play in an ugly game, and
that was interesting, right?
Yeah, they handled it well, and our boy, your boy, I should say, I'll give you the credit for it because you saw it coming before I did. But I have to say, if I was starting a team and I had like a super team and I wanted a great sixth man role player kind of a guy, Bruce Brown would be the first guy I'm looking at. This guy is just awesome, man. He was terrific for them in that game.
Yeah.
And you were sort of onto it earlier in the year, and I was like, what is this guy? He never shoots the ball, never does anything, even when he plays. And then all of a sudden, they've really turned him into like Nash and D'Antoni and all them, and the guys around him have made him into a really solid player. Anyway, we'll get into tonight. I have a strong take on this. So my plan would be to bet Philly. I don't care what the spread is of everything, just bet Philly every game against Atlanta. I think as long as Embiid plays, they have a significant edge. I really was impressed with how Atlanta kept throwing punches back in the last game. But to start off in this first game, and I'll let you pull your screen up before we talk about the plays. I really do like Philadelphia in this game. I'm just going to give the edge to them all the time. And while the point spreads stay close between the two of them, I just don't see it as being quite as close. I told my friend the other day that if you want to, there's a parlay thing you could do where you bet Philadelphia to win. I mean, you could just bet them to win in 5 now, win the next 3 in a row. But he had a parlay thing that was like some ridiculous number, some ridiculous odds on it. And I told him, go ahead and bet Philadelphia just to win the next 3. I do think that Atlanta will play close and probably even take down one of these games, but I'm going to bet on Philadelphia and I'll give the 2 points tonight. That's where I'm at.
What do you think that what's his name? Do you think that DeAndre Hunter is going to be playing?
Mm-mm. I think he's gone for the season for the playoffs.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. And it's going to make it interesting because there's going to be guys playing who we've already seen what's going to happen. I wouldn't be surprised if Atlanta at some point just scraps a little bit of the Solomon Hill thing and just puts in Herter or Gallinari to play a lot more minutes. They are playing a lot of minutes. They did play a lot of minutes for Hill in the first game. He only played 8 in the second game. I think you're going to see a lot more Herter and Gallinari on that starting lineup. To have another, especially Herter, it just makes more sense to have another ball handling sort of wing. And I think Herter with Bogdanovich and Young is their best bet. So, and I think you're going to see Gallinari take over. You know, we're going to see massive ownership on John Collins, who's going to play his minutes. But he's going to have games. He's an awesome talent. I think he's really, really good. I think in a few years from now, we might be saying he looking back like, wow, he could have been the best player on that team. And not that he is right now, but just that he could have been, because he's going to be a star. But
he's like a tweener. He's struggling for a role though, sort of. No.
But it's been like that the whole time there, and partly it's it's a little bit the same thing that happens with you have a ball dominant guard in Trey, and then Trey has gotten really good at not being quite so ball dominant this year, and not quite so dependent on him because they've got Bogdanovich there, who, if you look, Bogdanovich has the best on-off court numbers of anybody in the playoffs. He's like the most important. Trey may be the best player on their team. Bogdanovich is the most important player, and he's the player I'd want on my team above everybody. So I'm sort of, my first thought in this game was sort of just to fade the John Collins stuff as much as I possibly can. I think it might be a little harder on, maybe not harder. But the guy just is consistently not getting there. And then I never like playing centers against Embiid. Capella's price is starting to get a little bit tempting for me. But I think just sort of scrapping the front court, thinking that playing the Philadelphia has, is not dominating, but sort of leading this game, that they're going to need the scoring and the power punch from Gallinari and Herter instead of Collins and Hill in the game at times. And maybe Collins will play the 5 even sometimes. But I think you'll see Gallinari on the court more and more in this series as it progresses. And we saw that in game 2 because he was shooting the ball really well. But you want a guy like Gallen. He's played on a lot of bad teams, but he's the kind of guy you want in a playoff series. And I just see it slanting a little bit more that way. It's not even that Collins isn't, it's just hard for him to get usage with all these other guys. How are you gonna get him, with Trae Young, Bogdanovich on the outside, and then Gallinari, who's just one of the better shooters in the NBA, can get a shot off whenever he wants, and Herter, who's an excellent ball handler / it doesn't really work for Collins' game as much. He's a guy who needs to be featured a little bit more, but I still think he's done a really good job fitting in with the team anyway. A lot of nonsense stuff. I love talking basketball, so I talk a little more about it when we get into it. But I'm a big fan of the Gallinari Herter. I don't think I'm alone in that, but playing both those guys, I think you can play them together, because I think you will see lineups with Collins and Capella out, or one of those two out, and those two guys in instead of Solomon Hill. That's going to be their primary lineup. One of Collins or Capella with those two, depending on how the game flow goes. But also I expect Collins or Capella or both to get into foul trouble trying to match up with Embiid.
So needless to say, if I had to press you, you probably are only allowed to play one. If you only had to play one, you'd play Embiid over Jokic?
No.
Okay.
I'm very close on this one. This is a tough call, and you're right. You probably should only be playing one, but my first thought was to try to play both. This is a must-win for Denver, and it's not a must-win for Philly, but Embiid, you sort of feel like every game for him is a must-win right now, because there's that lingering, hey, how much longer can I get away with this kind of a thing? You know what I mean? He's, these injuries, like, we didn't even know if we'd see him at all in this series until this game, or unless they got in trouble. And I think they're going to keep featuring him like crazy. It is weird because Capella is like one of the best defensive players. I mean, he was one of the defensive player of the year candidates, but Embiid is the guy who can turn a series, and it is the reason why Brooklyn, and Brooklyn or Milwaukee is no shoo-in to make he's single-handedly the reason. They'll destroy these teams without these guys. I love Embiid tonight. I'm struggling with the decision between Embiid and majorly struggling with Embiid versus Jokic.
Right. I like Bogdan tonight. He's probably my favorite. My favorite Atlanta guy. He's kind of too cheap now, I think.
Yeah.
And like you said, nothing particularly earth-shattering about that. Try to have to get different by some kind of weird construction, I guess. I don't think I'll be able to do it just by picking some player that no one's heard of at this point, I don't think I'm going to get to Capella. I think I'd rather play Ayton, if that makes any sense. So for me, it's probably going to be Bogdan and Trae. I don't know if I'm going to go to the Herter Gallinari thing today. I mean, it's starting to get, like you said, like kind of must-winish for everybody, and I just feel as though the usage is going to condense just a little more, So I just think that it's going to be more Trae and to some extent Bogdan, and a little less towards the Herter Gallinari thing. I don't know.
Do you mind pulling your screen up real quick?
Yeah.
I agree completely with the general thinking, but my flip side is, okay, so we have Ben Simmons or Thibault. So Ben Simmons is the best perimeter defender in the NBA. So he's guarding Trae Young about 35% of the time, 40% of the time so far in the series. I think it'll be more like 50% going forward. And I think you'll see the rest of it will be Thibault with a very rare Danny Green, Seth Curry somehow mix up where he's guarding him. Danny Green guarded Steph Curry for 70% of the possessions in the first game. Guarded Trae Young in 70% in the first game, and guarded him in only 2 possessions in the second game. So Rivers made a huge adjustment. It paid off massively. To Trae's credit, he didn't force it the issue, and he did get other guys involved. But I think that's, to me, why when those guys are going to be smothered by 2 of the best defenders, one of Gallinari and Herter is going to have to make something happen for Atlanta. So I do think I'm looking at one of them, if not both, in my lineups today. That's just my take, but I respect your take. I'm just throwing out what I'm doing.
Anything else from Philly or no?
So yeah, I mean, the low owned guy who just because he's low owned and has upside is that I'll mention is Harris, even though he doesn't stand out, especially to me. Simmons should be able to dominate in this kind of a series. The problem is you're going to put his energy on defense. He's going to be out there trying to get out in transition. And they really just, with all these guys, they don't really, he was in the dunker spot like he always is, but he had Trey on him a couple times and they wouldn't even give him the ball. It's a little just like concerning, but he can get there without, getting there. So I have him sort of blah. Seth Curry can always get hot, but at high ownership, he can always not. You know what I mean? He shot the ball extremely well in this series so far. But in that, he still only put up 28 fantasy points in the last 26 and a half, 5,300. It's not bad, but that's with shooting the ball really well. Maybe downgrade. I'm thinking of not playing as much Curry, not playing as much Simmons, not playing as much Harris. And I don't think the field's going to be much either, but I just wanted to mention them because each of these guys are worth considering. Danny Green is the weird, I don't know what to do with him guy. But the guy from Philly that I'm probably going to side with here is Thibault as a value. I think that those 24 minutes have room to go up. I think that there's a lot he can do without scoring. And I think at times, because the way they're going to double Embiid, he's going to be left open and hopefully he can knock down some of his shots. That's the angle I'm taking with him. And then your super long shot play is Shake Milton. After what he did, basically single-handedly taking that game over literally did nothing and all that wasn't even playing in a series. And then just took over in a 4-minute stretch where he scored. What did he make? Made 4 threes in a row. It's just the fact that if they're in trouble at all, he might get back out there and they might use him that way. With George Hill in the mix, I don't generally like that kind of decision, but I do think that what we're looking for is the upside on a low-owned guy. And we just saw it from Shake Milton in the last game. So if they're in trouble again and not moving the ball, and Thibault, by the way, huge foul trouble concern in general. Anybody else does anything gets in foul trouble or they're having trouble getting the ball offense moving, you're going to see some Shake Milton lineups in there.
Right.
So it's just a guy who's a long shot play, more for larger field. But I do think Thibault can be played fairly comfortably. Again, he might play 20 minutes and put up 5 fantasy points, but he also might play like 20 minutes and put up 20 fantasy points like he would. I don't know. And I'm just open to that 3,100 price. But the main thing is going to be Embiid. I think I'll have somebody from Philly on. I'll have some Simmons lineups without Embiid, but mostly it's going to be the Embiid show for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I don't have anything really fancy on Philadelphia. I mean, honestly, I think we can just move on.
Let's move on.
You like Paul or do you like Booker? I mean, you like both? What do you like over there?
I like the opposite angle and trying to play an angle of this game that's different. Chris Paul's price is, what the hell were they doing? They're basically making you play Chris Paul. So my first thing is I'm going to try not to play him. And it's pretty easy to know what the other pattern is, right? Chris Paul is playing fine, but the second unit goes nuts and Cam Payne stays on the court a lot longer. That's the angle that I might take. I also think that I thought we were going to see the blowout in game 2 from Phoenix. And I think that there's a chance that Denver really gets off in one game. And this would be the best guess at what game it would be. So I like the Booker, Payne, Bridges, and Cam Johnson side of this. Cam Johnson is a better version of Thibault, but I think you can play both of those guys together and use them as your value savers on this slate. But look, Chris Paul is going to be in some of my lineups. It's impossible to avoid at 7,100. But I love the idea of skipping him and playing the Booker Payne angle. There's enough upside there to get it done. Payne maybe is a reach, but I mean the production per minute is very enticing, especially if this game sort of gets out of hand either way, or if he's just playing really well, he'll be out there with Paul and Booker. They'll run lineups like that. They can use Bridges at the 4. You don't need to play Cam Johnson. You know what I mean? He will play his 18 minutes, but I'm just saying that I could see the lineups going different ways. You've also got the Torrey Craig part of it. He's the one I like a little bit less, even though he's been great in this series. Like, it's like, do they only get him to play against his former team? Because he wasn't even supposed to play any minutes in the series, and he's playing minutes, and, not a ton, but he's playing minutes and he's played extremely well. I'm not playing him. I'm just throwing it out there. And then the other one who maybe is under projected minutes wise would be Saric. But I don't think I'm going to be able to do it I think there's just better minimum cost guys to take shots on, like the Cam Johnson, McDee Steibel, I think are a little better than Saric. And you also, So I'm leaning Booker as my main play here. DeAndre Ayton plays really well. Like, he had 2 fantasy points at halftime the other day. He got in foul trouble. It's going to happen against Jokic, but he's getting to a price point at 6,800. You could play him over Chris Paul at, one whatever the ownership, 1/3 the ownership maybe. I really think it's going to end up being like that. And then I'm siding with the younger guys more than the Crowders, because if the game, for any reason, I'm not saying it's going to get out of hand. I'm not making a promise. I'm not making a bet. I'm saying if there was one game that was going to, and games, it's going to happen sometimes. Denver's first game at home here, after Jokic wins the MVP, all the things. Like, I just feel like I would rather side with trying to take a contrarian angle by playing the bench unit, which means Payne and Cameron Johnson in this game, but mostly Cameron Johnson. Payne is not going to be owned at all, so he's a great long shot tournament play. And you can include Bridges in that, because Bridges is going to be on the court longer than the other guys, especially Crowder, no matter what the situation.
Bridges I like. Michael Green.
Oh, and I haven't talked about yeah. Go for your Denver guys.
I'm just looking at it all as one thing.
Yeah.
JaMychal Green. I'm just looking at different values. Michael Bridges, JaMychal Green. That's it. I don't know what else I'm doing.
Can I offer you a Paul Millsap instead of JaMychal Green argument?
No, I thought of that too.
Why so quick?
Well, not so quick. That's what I'm saying. It wasn't so quick. I really thought about it a lot, and I think he was responsible partially for me winning my showdown the other night, actually, with his 12 minutes.
Paul Millsap, yeah.
Yeah.
You mean, talk about being productive, man. He had a monster 12 minutes.
Yeah, but that game was toast. I don't know, but it fits your narrative. You know what I mean? Like, if you think the game somehow got out of hand, I think he'll get in there and make the most of it. He likes to. He'll. One thing I like to look at is who like, when the game is over, who like actually wants those rebounds. You know what I mean? Like, there's usually no one that gives a crap at what goes on in garbage time. But there's some guys like Millsap. He was like, he really like wanted those rebounds for himself when they were up for grabs. So if it goes into that mode again, I think he's perfectly fine candidate to do something close to what he did in the last game. And it's just a lot to ask for that to happen and for that to happen. You know what I mean? I don't know.
The problem with Denver right now is that Will Barton doesn't play enough to be viable, but plays just enough to take away from everybody else.
It's to clog up the ecosystem a little bit.
And it kills everyone. It kills Monty Morris from a usage standpoint more than from a minute standpoint. I think Monty Morris is going to play his 22 to 24 minutes or whatever, 20 to 24 minutes. But the usage with that unit is going to be Will Barton a lot. That's just the way that he plays. It's also going to take away a little bit from Aaron Gordon. They still don't look like they didn't look like they know exactly what to do with the Gordon Barton situation, even though Barton's got a minutes limit. And then it also kind of kills Campazzo, because as much as Campazzo is just, he's out there for defense and just takes some open shots, that's not going to happen as much with Will Barton available. And he's also going to lose, he lost some minutes. He played 7 less minutes last game.
Yeah.
The first game. So it sort of is hurting all these guys. Though the thing I'm waiting for is the Michael Porter explosion. And that's the reason why I can side with the Embiid over Jokic, because I think you can play Porter and Jokic together, but it would just make more sense from just a logic standpoint to play Porter Jr. instead of Jokic and then play Embiid rather than play Jokic with Porter and leave out Embiid. You know what I mean? But maybe you can play all of them. I really think Embiid comes out. I really think Jokic will come out and try and, take over the game early as he tries to do. I do think DeAndre Ayton does a fantastic job on him. Like, I really am impressed by Ayton's growth defensively. And I mean, it's crazy to think that those guys drafted ahead of Luka, and here we are, they're the ones playing. They're
Right.
not there, you know?
Right.
It's not Luka's fault. I mean, they've got better supporting cast and everything around them. But it is kind of funny. Neither of them are, well, I guess Trey's the best player, but anyway, but I think this stands to be the Michael Porter Jr. Potential breakout game. He's been rushing his shots. He hasn't been right. They've actually cut his minutes down. We've seen his minutes projection at 34 to 39 in this series, and he's played 28 and 26, right? So that's something to worry about, or 30 and 28. But I'm willing to embrace a little variance because I think that Porter Jr., if he had anything like a normal game for him, that he would be like the 60% owned guy. He'd be the one everyone would side with. Instead, they're going to play Bogdanovich, which makes sense completely to me. But if you're talking about upside, Porter Jr., I think, has the upside to really break things. This is a tough 2-game slate, by the way. The other guy,
sure is. It sure is.
It really is. Austin Rivers, it really hurts to have Barton back, but I still think he gets plenty of run. And I'm just worried about JaMychal Green's minutes getting cut. I really think it's going to happen. Had they won either of the first games, I don't see any reason that it's playoffs. This is not the same as the NBA season where they just are going to play their minutes. It's going to be different game by game. I still expect JaMychal Green to be around the maybe like 16 to 20 range, but maybe Millsap picks up a few extra minutes. I just like him as a long shot play. I mean, again, he's also much more productive per minute usually than JaMychal Green is. But it's tough with Denver. So I'm mostly siding with Jokic and Porter as the main pieces. And it feels like we're beating our head against the wall with this Porter Jr. thing, but like the ownership's reflected of it, and he's coming down and down and down. And you're just trying to play for situations. And I think that he can get off in this game. So I like him back at home. It tends to be better at home in general anyway. So Porter Jr. and Jokic are the priorities for me, with all the other guys sort of mixed in.
Okay.
All right. So real quick, just to highlight like the guys who I have Embiid, Jokic as try to get them in together. I have Bogdanovich as a guy who I just really like in the middle range. I'm probably going to end up with more MPJ than I do Bogdanovich because I want to take the lower owned guy, and I think that the ceiling is a little higher. And then I don't mind if I'm going to play that Porter Jr. angle, then I can play Herter and Gallinari together. I don't think that they're going to hurt each other. I really don't think they're going too much because of the way they run things. And people think of Gallinari as like a 3. Gallinari is like a 5. Like he's a 4-5. Right. You know what I mean? He's a big dude. So you can absolutely play those guys in the court at the same time. They also seem to have nice chemistry together. They looked really good in game 2. So those are the guys who I'm using as a little bit value savers. Then there's the Thibault Johnson conversation. I'm sorry, those guys along with Bridges. And then there's the Thibault Johnson conversation where I like both of them. I almost prefer lineups where I would play them both in the same lineup because I think Johnson's the better play, but I don't think most people are going to play both of them together. And I don't think that many people are going to play Thibault in general, but I think that playing them together is the route I would want to go.
All right. I don't think I'm going to be around tonight, but if I am, I'll let you know. Otherwise, I'm again, I put up an MMA video. I'll probably put up, what do we agree? Even though Pierce is around, I'm going to put up a NASCAR thing on my sheets. And the sheets will go up at some point this weekend. I have to figure out how much time I have, but I'll do what I can. And that'll be it.
Awesome. Well, it'll be fun to, hope you have a fun weekend. It'll be fun to be solo with you guys for a little bit. We'll do a little Q&A stuff like we've been doing. And yeah, it should be good times.
All right. I'll see you later.
All right. Sheets, hold on one second before you get out of here. Guys, we'll see you at the top of the leaderboards.